Exercising on an empty stomach burns up to 70% more fat than exercising 2 hours after eating. That single finding from published research already reframes the entire conversation about morning movement. But that number is only the beginning. Depending on what type of exercise you choose, at what intensity, and for how long, the fat-burning efficiency shifts dramatically. And the compound effect on visceral belly fat, specifically, is where the real story gets extraordinary. Today we are going to break down the precise molecular mechanisms behind why fasted exercise attacks fat cells harder, faster, and more persistently than fed-state exercise. And then give you the specific protocol that targets belly fat most effectively. The fasting state needs to be understood precisely before anything else. After 8 to 12 hours without food, blood glucose returns to baseline, hepatic glycogen stores are 50 to 80% depleted, and insulin levels reach their lowest point of the day. Insulin is the primary inhibitor of hormone-sensitive lipase, the enzyme inside fat cells, responsible for breaking stored triglycerides into free fatty acids. The moment insulin drops, the molecular lock on hormone-sensitive lipase is released. Triglycerides inside fat cells begin hydrolyzing into glycerol and free fatty acids, ready to enter the bloodstream. Simultaneously, glucagon rises and further amplifies hepatic fatty acid mobilization. This is the preset condition of fasting. Every biochemical gate needed for fat breakdown is already open. Exercise is the trigger that detonates the system. The instant exercise begins, the sympathetic nervous system fires and releases norepinephrine. Norepinephrine binds to beta-adrenergic receptors on fat cells and directly activates hormone-sensitive lipase. In the fasted state, with insulin suppressed, there is almost no opposing signal resisting this activation. Free fatty acids flood the bloodstream and are transported to contracting muscle fibers, where they enter mitochondria and are oxidized for ATP production. In the fed state, elevated insulin blocks roughly half of this cascade before it can complete. The 70% greater fat oxidation measured during fasted exercise is the quantifiable result of this hormonal arrangement. On top of this, fasted exercise powerfully activates AMPK, the master energy sensor of the cell. The fasted state alone partially activates AMPK by lowering intracellular energy availability. Adding exercise drives a second, additive surge of AMPK activation. The combined effect accelerates fatty acid transport into mitochondria and increases beta-oxidation throughput, while simultaneously suppressing fatty acid synthase and acetyl-CoA carboxylase, the enzymes responsible for building new fat. Fasting and exercise activate AMPK along two parallel pathways, converging on the same outcome. Fat burns faster, and new fat is not being made. Fasted exercise also drives a surge in growth hormone secretion. Growth hormone is a potent lipolytic hormone that acts preferentially on visceral adipose tissue, the deep belly fat surrounding internal organs. Studies have documented that growth hormone levels can rise up to 7-fold above resting values following fasted exercise. Visceral fat cells express a higher density of growth hormone receptors than subcutaneous fat cells, making them disproportionately sensitive to this signal. This is the specific mechanism through which fasted exercise targets belly fat more aggressively than fat in other regions. A critical additional detail: visceral fat mass directly predicts reduced 24-hour growth hormone secretion, meaning excess belly fat suppresses the very hormone most effective at eliminating it. Fasted exercise breaks this vicious cycle. Reducing visceral fat raises growth hormone, which further reduces visceral fat in a self-reinforcing loop. Now the most important practical question: which type of exercise maximizes fasted fat burning for belly fat specifically? The research points to 3 modalities, each contributing through a distinct mechanism, and combining them produces the most powerful protocol. The first is low-intensity steady-state cardio, or LIS brisk walking or light jogging sustained at 50 to 65% of maximum heart rate for 30 to 45 minutes. This intensity range, also known as Zone 2, is where fat contributes 50 to 70% of the total energy supply. In the fasted state, this rises to 70 to 80%. The key advantage of LIS in the fasted state is that the exercise intensity is low enough that cortisol elevation is modest. Muscle protein breakdown is minimal, and fat oxidation is maximized throughout the entire session. A 45-minute fasted brisk walk produces comparable fat oxidation to a 60-minute post-meal jog, with far less physiological stress. For visceral fat specifically, LIS performed in the fasted state shows consistent reductions across multiple studies due to the sustained low insulin, high glucagon, high norepinephrine environment maintained throughout the session. The second modality is fasted HIIT high-intensity interval training, alternating 20 to 30 seconds of maximum effort with 10 to 20 seconds of rest. Repeated for 15 to 20 minutes total. HIIT's primary fat loss advantage in the fasted state is the EPOC effect. Excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, commonly called the afterburn. After a HIIT session, resting metabolic rate remains elevated for 24 to 48 hours. As the body restores oxygen debt, clears lactate, and repairs muscle microtrauma, this extended metabolic elevation means fat continues to be oxidized throughout the day, long after the workout ends. HIIT also burns 25 to 30% more calories per minute than moderate intensity cardio during the session itself. However, fasted HIIT should be capped at 20 minutes. Sessions exceeding this threshold in the fasted state risk excessive cortisol elevation, which drives muscle protein catabolism and paradoxically increases visceral fat accumulation signals over time. The third modality is fasted resistance training. While fat oxidation during resistance exercise is lower per minute compared to aerobic work, resistance training is the strongest long-term belly fat reduction strategy available. The reasons are twofold. First, every kilogram of muscle added raises resting metabolic rate by approximately 13 to 15 kilocalories per day, meaning more fat is burned at rest across every hour of every day. Second, resistance training in the fasted state produces acute and chronic improvements in insulin sensitivity, particularly in skeletal muscle. More insulin-sensitive muscle absorbs glucose more efficiently, reducing post-meal blood glucose spikes and directly suppressing the hormonal signal for fat storage. A meta-analysis published in PMC found that combining intermittent fasting with resistance training preserved lean body mass, while producing significant reductions in fat mass, the most favorable body composition outcome achievable. The optimal weekly protocol combining all three modalities is structured as follows. Monday and Thursday are dedicated to 40-minute fasted LIS brisk walking. Tuesday and Friday are reserved for 20 to 30-minute fasted resistance training sessions targeting major muscle groups. Wednesday incorporates a 15-minute fasted HIIT session. Saturday uses light fasted walking or yoga for active recovery. Sunday is complete rest. This rotation simultaneously activates fat oxidation during LIS sessions, generates EPOC through HIIT, builds metabolic rate through resistance training, and maintains insulin sensitivity across the entire week. Safety boundaries are non-negotiable. People with type 1 diabetes or hypoglycemia risk must not exercise fasted. Blood glucose can drop to dangerous levels without food in the system. Pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and anyone under 18 should not follow this protocol without physician guidance. People with cardiovascular disease or hypertension should restrict fasted exercise to low intensity walking only and consult their doctor before any high-intensity fasted work. Fasted exercise must not exceed 60 minutes in total duration. Beyond that threshold, the proportion of energy derived from muscle protein catabolism increases significantly, reducing lean muscle mass and lowering basal metabolic rate, precisely the opposite of the desired outcome. Stop immediately if severe dizziness, cold, sweating, or heart palpitations occur, and consume a small carbohydrate source. The fasting state is fat burning with every gate open. Insulin is suppressed. Glucagon is elevated. Growth hormone is rising. AMPK is primed. The moment you add movement, norepinephrine detonates hormone-sensitive lipase. Fat cells release their contents, and free fatty acids stream into muscle mitochondria. to be burned as fuel. The exercise does not cause the fat burning. It simply fires the trigger on a mechanism that was already fully loaded. 30 to 45 minutes of brisk fasted walking every morning. That single habit, maintained consistently, is the most evidence-supported, most sustainable, and most biochemically powerful approach to melting belly fat that exists.